Mayborn as the Maker Education Coordinator, and I also am having a great time working on virtual programs. And then I have a partner in crime here for Mayborn Connect who's helping me with programs. On my screen, she's right here. I don't know where she is for your screen, but why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Melissa Pennington, and I'm a museum engagement educator at the Mayborn, so glad to be here.
So I really appreciate everybody signing in for our orientation, so to speak, for Mayborn Connect. And I would like for you to, I'd like to encourage you to be bold about interrupting. The style of this program is a little bit unique because we're talking about programs designed for engaging students, but we're also talking at the educator level. So I'll be giving you info as if I might be presenting to a class some, but I know that educators are going to have educator questions. And it's great to chime in and interrupt. I value every interruption that I can get in these programs because it keeps us connected to people who are watching. Also, I tell kids, and the adults all know, but I tell kids, whatever your screen name is on your tile, that's the only thing I can call you. So make sure you know what I think your name is. But be thinking about your questions. It's great to just unmute and interrupt. Kudos. Or if you feel more comfortable, throw it in the chat. Emily's keeping track of the chat, and she can put those questions in. Also, I invite the students, and I'll invite you too. If you have a show and tell thing that's related to something that we're going to talk about today, if you know where it is, run and grab it, because we like to see the fun things that people have. Our topics today, we'll be talking about bones and teeth and skulls. We'll have a little bit about bugs, some rocks and fossils, minerals and dinosaurs, those sorts of things. So if you've got anything like that you wanted to show off, you're welcome to. We'd love to see your treasures. And I also want to invite everybody, if you're in a position to do it, to turn on your camera. But I understand, especially as we prepare for going back to school and getting ready for school, virtual or in person, we just take this call wherever it is. So if you need to leave your camera off, that's great. But I also like to see your faces. So whatever fits your situation the best. So Mayborn Connect, kind of the genesis of the program, has been filling a need for missing field trips. Field trips are kind of important on both sides. Teachers and students value them as an adventure and a learning opportunity that kind of expands on what's happening in the classroom or what's happening in home education. But also they're a useful part of how the Mayborn keeps the lights on. The field trips that come here help support our budget and our mission. And with field trips being either abbreviated or postponed or canceled altogether, we need some way to meet people in a useful way and to support them. And so Mayborn Connect is that program, and that's the topic of today's call. We're looking to maintain connection with folks, and if you know of some way that this might deepen, or that we might deepen that connection with you or teachers or home educators that you know, be bold about letting us know. We are actively seeking that feedback, and we definitely want to know the best place to find our scientists and our history lovers. So one of the questions we get is, what platform do we need to use? If a teacher wants to join a Mayborn Connect call, what sort of platform? And we meet you where you're at. We're platform agnostic. So if there is a district that likes Zoom, we will Zoom. If they are on Google Hangouts or they want to meet Google Meet style, we will do that. If they're on some other platform, we will meet them there. And it's easy for us to do that because districts have their own habits and protocols. It's easy for us to adapt ourselves to fit that. It's just easier that direction. But also the teacher or the educator, whoever is arranging the program, they get to set the meeting and invite us. So they're totally in control of who enters the meeting or who participates in the meeting. That way that they can have the safety and security at their end and feel good about how the meeting is going. So our programs that we're going to talk about today, we've worked hard to make them interesting and engaging, while we also support the standards. We focus mostly on the state standards, We don't talk about that with the students generally because they don't care. But the educators who need to make sure that they're aligning their adventures with the things going on in the classroom, it's an important consideration. And so we work hard to make sure that these programs support the TEKS here in Texas, but by aiming at those standards, we also end up aligned with a lot of the national standards too. So if an educator is wanting to make sure that the programs that they have through Mayborn Connect are useful for their classroom, we can help show you what TEKS or standards that we would be offering in a program. So for scheduling a Mayborn Connect call, it's not difficult. What you do is you go on the website and you look through, you look at the available dates, you sign up for one, and then it's scheduled. And we coordinate with you, make sure you're comfortable with the details of connectivity and make sure all your questions are answered. And then we meet and we have a good time. So what I'd like to do, I'd like to kind of pause for a second and just kind of insist that there's a question somewhere, because that kind of breaks the ice. What questions does this group have so far before I kind of offer some of the science that we will do and some of the history? Melissa will talk a little bit about that too. What questions exist? And we'll just kind of pause awkwardly while everybody kind of gets ready to break the ice.
How many people are able to be in a Zoom call at one time?
Thank you for asking that. There's two answers. The first answer is we aim it at 35. That's been, that lets any class fit in there. It's very rare that we see a class that's more than 35. And so if somebody books a program, they can fit their whole class in easily if it's a teacher with a regular sized classroom of students. The other answer is it's awfully hard for me to count noses. So if number 36 wandered in the door, I can't really, it's not going to boot anybody off. So it's not like somebody's going to have issues with, oh my gosh, that last person they couldn't get access or something like that. But 35 is the number that we suggest is a good operating number. If you needed to do more than that, we could visit with you about making sure the format was right or making sure that we scheduled the right number of programs, because it's a two-way program. Generally, the kids will want to speak or ask questions or share. And so if we have 35 or less, one program fits everybody in comfortably. If we get past that, then it's better to divide it into two programs so that the students all have a chance to interact. Thank you for asking that. I should have said that up front. I appreciate you saying that. What other questions are there?
Will this also work if our students are learning virtually from home versus all being in a classroom?
Thank you for asking that. That's my favorite part of Mayborn Connect, besides getting to play with dinosaurs and rocks and things, is how flexible it is, because some teachers are planning for an in-person experience, some are planning for a virtual experience, and some are planning to do whatever the moment dictates, and it's going to change as time passes. And Mayborn Connect meets in all of those areas. So if you scheduled something for a month from now and you're thinking your students will all be in one classroom, that's fine, we can connect that way. But if suddenly you found yourself returning to virtual learning and you were talking to students across your community, we would still be able to do that. We would just sign in virtually and share with students all across your community. And we've done it both ways more than once, and it's been successful. So thank you for asking that. What other questions are there? As you think of them, just keep track of them and be bold about throwing them out there. Or if you have an idea like, oh, they should know this, please tell us. We're really excited to have this group of experts gathered together to visit today. So don't be shy to visit. So we're going to talk a little bit about our first program, and it's our Bones and Teeth program. And the full name of it's actually Animal Adaptations, Bones and Teeth, because a lot of teachers are interested in content on how to present the idea of adaptations. And that's one of the standards that gets a lot of attention because it's tricky to teach. And so finding a way to illustrate for students different animals who are adapted for different environments or tasks or diets, it's just a useful programmed for us to provide, and we do that with some of our specimens. And so before we get started looking at some of our skulls and teeth, I want you to do a quick activity. I want you to count your own teeth. And the easiest way, I think, is counting with your tongue. And then I want you to put your number of teeth into the chat. So go ahead and count and then type. I'm going to count my own. I haven't lost any teeth since Tuesday, so I'm still good. Okay. I always count every time, though, because I don't want to make sure I gave everybody enough time to count. I've got a lot of teeth. Lisa has a lot of teeth, too, and so does Ashley. We are all very wise, I think. So as we're considering our teeth, we need to be thinking about our different types of teeth. And the very first type of teeth that we're going to talk about is our snippers. Right up front in my mouth are my snippers. And if I handed you a carrot or a cookie and said, take a little bite, you could just snip off a little bite. If you're my son, Ben, you'd have trouble because the front teeth, they're missing for the last year. But our snipping teeth, they're kind of like scissors, and their name sounds like scissors. They're our incisors, and they are perfect for snipping. And we have a good example of snipping teeth in this beaver skull. Now, these giant incisors, they're really orange because of the iron in the teeth. They're perfect for snipping. And actually, if you give a beaver enough time, they can snip a whole tree down, a very big tree down, because these are excellent for snipping. And there's some animals that only have snipping teeth. So this is a good example of all snippers all the time. And a lot of you would recognize this as a shark's jaws that have been preserved with the teeth still in. So that's the front side. And if I turn that around, you can see some of the rows and rows of those teeth. They just kind of pop back up. When one falls out, another one rises up. But these teeth are all sharp like knives, and they're excellent at slicing. And if a shark wants to eat something, they just slice off a big bite and gulp it down whole. They don't chew their food. They don't bother because it'd be really difficult. They slice and they gulp. Well, if you had to slice and chew up your food with just your front teeth, it would be a pain. Like if I gave you that big carrot and said, all right, you can only use these front 4 teeth, get to snipping. It would take a really long time because they're excellent for snipping off, but they're terrible at crunching and munching and mushing and getting it ready for us to gulp. Well, a shark's stomach can handle those big chunks of whatever they're eating, but our stomachs really need us to have our food chewed up. So we have a different set of teeth, and actually the beaver has some of those too. In the back of our mouths, we've got these crunching and munching teeth, and actually I've got one of those old silver fillings. Kids always want to know, what is that? Because they don't get the silver fillings anymore. But a beaver has those munching, crunching teeth in the back too. And when they snip off whatever they're going to snip off, little twigs or bark or whatever it is they're interested in, then they crush it and they munch it up with these back molars, those grinding teeth. And some animals only have those grinding teeth. So check these teeth out. Totally different animal. This is the top jaw of a drumfish. It's a type of a carp. And so they're swimming along, and their food is not fast. They generally eat little shellfish, little clams, and things like that. But when they find something, they just crush it and they smash it up. All of their teeth are like that, and it's really useful. They don't have to chase their food, but when they have it, they just smash it and gulp it. So those crunching teeth are really good if you need to chew something to mush, or you need to break it down in a way that your stomach can digest it. So we talked about our snipping teeth. We've talked about our crunching teeth, but there's one third type that I would like for you to consider. So I'm going to spin these around real quick, and I want to show you this skull that I've got. Now, this is an animal that we actually have downstairs in our exhibits in Backyard Ecology. Here, I'll swim him up from the bottom here. There we go. We've got a skull from an alligator gar. Now, these teeth are super sharp. They're excellent at grabbing. He even grabbed a little bit of fuzz. Look at that. It's hard to brush a gar's teeth. I'm going to spin him that way so that nobody at home sees his dirty teeth. Now, these teeth are excellent at grabbing. They're so good at capturing stuff that he's been dead for 10 years, and he can still grab and capture my finger easily and just dangle there. Well, those teeth are perfect for catching slippery fish. That's his diet. So we're going to do a quick exercise. We're going to play catch in a virtual space. I'm going to take a ball, an imaginary ball, and I'm going to throw it through the screen. It's going to come out of your screen, and you're going to catch it, all right? But it only works if you actually catch the ball, okay? So ready? I'm going to throw it to you. Catch it with your hands. Now catch it. Bam. Now I need you to look at your fingers, and I need you to consider how you caught the ball. Now, if you had an alligator, its teeth would look like that, or an alligator gar, its teeth would look like that, because that's excellent for grabbing. If you had tried to catch it with snipping fingers, it would have not worked. Or if you'd put them like molars trying to like crush and try to catch a ball that way, it's terrible. But with your fingers out like teeth like that, it's perfect. And that looks a lot like T-Rex, coyote, these animals that have these capturing teeth. Well, our canines, they're particularly wimpy. They're not good for catching food. So if I had to catch my dinner, like with my teeth, I would have to find something really slow, like a Big Mac or some fries or something like that. But predators that do have to catch their food, they need excellent grabbing teeth. So if they can just get a tooth or two in there, and then they have what they need to pull in the rest of their dinner. And so grabbing teeth are an adaptation that predators would use. So an animal like a beaver that's got snippers and crunchers, not adapted to hunting. These animals are not adapted to chewing up their food, but they don't need to. Their stomach will do it for them. So I'm going to pause that part of the bones and teeth presentation right there. There's other parts. We have a good collection of skulls and teeth, and we talk about different sorts of diets like carnivores and herbivores and omnivores. And we talk about people and raccoons, and we talk about bears and different things that go along with the different diets. But it would be better use of our time if we pause for a second to kind of poll the group and see what questions you have now that we've had a little bit of science. What do you need to know?
Can you adjust for the different grade levels, or are there programs set for different age and grade levels?
Thank you for asking that. We have identified the standards that we're targeting, but a lot of times there will be a standard that a teacher might have interest in, maybe interest in us emphasizing that, and it's just as easy for us to hold up a bear skull and discuss types of diet as it is different types of teeth or different parts of an ecosystem all related to that bear. So we're happy to kind of bend and flex using these specimens. And also, a lot of times, the standards may need to go up. Maybe we have talked about standards that are at a grade level that you aren't teaching at, or whoever you know is not teaching at, but they would like to know, can we adjust this program to fit the standards they're interested in? We're happy to do that. We like doing that sort of thing, and it's easy to talk about different standards when you've got the specimens on hand to do it. Thank you for asking that. What else?
Alan, we had a question in the chat asking how long are the programs?
Thank you. The programs are 50 minutes, and that 50 minutes includes the introduction, the science, and the back and forth interaction. We do Q&A, a question and answer with the museum staff and the students. We try to sprinkle that in all through the program, but also we put time at the end for that. Also, we invite students to do their show and tell at the end if they've got something that they want to share that's on topic. And that's been a really useful part. But we fit that all into 50 minutes, and we do that so that we can do a new program on the hour. So if we need to shuffle, change classes, if we need to put our fossils away and pull out our bones and then meet another class at the top of the hour, we do that. So 50 minutes is the time. Thank you for asking that. So I'd like to bump to our next program, and that's our Wild About Bugs program. And that's one of our programs that's been pretty popular, especially K through 2. It fits well with older grade levels too, but something about that K through 2 segment, they really grab a hold of those bugs. And when we start that program, I like to welcome everyone to the planet of the bugs, because Earth totally is. We kind of like to think that we are the bosses of the planet, we're in charge, we're humans, we're smart, but really bugs kind of own the planet. There's way more bugs than there are people. There's more bugs than there are any other group. And actually, if we just take one little section of bugs, or you could say insects, that's even more specific. If we just look at beetles, beetles make up 1/4 of all living things on Earth. So if you lined up everybody, every critter, every animal, all in one big line, 1/4 of that line is beetles. So we ought to at least know a little bit about them if they're going to be in control of the planets, in control of Earth. So in our Wild About Bugs program, one of the things that we do is we play a little game called Bye Bye Bug. And the way Bye Bye Bug works, we need students to be thinking about specific terms and general terms. And in this case, I want them to think about the difference between bug and insect. One of them just kind of means wiggly thing, and the other one means a very specific group. 6 legs, it's got wings, and it's got 3 body segments. So we play Bye Bye Bug. And so we're going to play that right now. To do that, I'm going to hold up a specimen. And when I hold it up, you're going to vote. And if your camera is on, that's how we're voting. If your camera's off, you can just vote in your head. You may be driving down the road, but vote carefully. And the way it goes, if you think that what I'm showing you is an insect, you're going to hold up the letter I. Okay, and the letter I for insect is like your pinky. And you can also remember like a little wasp's stinger, right? So that's insect. Or if you think it's just a bug, something crawly, but it's not an insect, you're just going to wave it off. Bye-bye, bug. Okay, so I'll hold up the specimens and you decide, insect or bug. All right, here we go. Number 1. Do you think it's an insect or bug? Show your votes. Insect or bug? All right. Number 2. Hold that one up there. Insect or bug? Insect or bug? Make your vote. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3. Insect or bug? I'll turn it around. Maybe that'll help. Insect or bug? You ever notice how hard it is to count a butterfly's legs? Okay, 2 more. Is this an insect or bug? Insect or bug? Katie, I see you voting in the chat. That's a good idea. I should have thought of that. Well played. Well played. Last one. Okay. Is this an insect or bye-bye bug? Insect or bye-bye bug? Now, I've modified this one slightly. When I play that one with students, I do a set of 3, and some bug and some insect, and I don't teach them the difference, and I just make them kind of make their best guess. Then we specifically teach those parts. 3 body parts: head, thorax, abdomen. They need wings, they need 6 legs, those things that are very insect-like. And then after we've had the direct instruction on that, then we play it again, and everybody can feel confident in their insect and bug votes. One of the bugs that we also focus on a bunch in this program is the mealworm. And some of you know about mealworms, and some of you it's a new critter. But they're common in pet stores because a lot of pets have mealworms in their diet. Chickens love them, bearded dragons love them, some fish love them. Well, those mealworms will grow up to be beetles easily in a classroom, and we take advantage of that by having our life cycle of the mealworm available, each of the stages available here on the screen, and we'll talk through that with the students, and we'll teach them that life cycle. So life cycles has been big in the districts that I've worked with in the past. But we also like to talk about a mealworm's favorite thing, because figuring out how to meet the needs of a mealworm meets several different standards at several different grade levels. And so it's a useful one to put in. Turns out mealworms are in love with oatmeal. They like to eat it, which is it's pretty obvious, but they also get moisture from it. There's enough moisture in that dry oatmeal that they can actually get hydrated from dry oatmeal. Who knew? But the third one is they can find their shelter just in a little pile of oatmeal. So a lump of oatmeal, dried oatmeal, can meet those mealworms' needs at multiple levels. And so we teach that to students, figuring out the needs that an organism might have, or they might have in a certain environment, so that they can thrive. Those mealworms, though, they don't only eat oatmeal. They will eat other things too. And before I let Melissa share a little bit about cultural history programs, I wanted to show you one other thing that mealworms will eat. They're actually excellent decomposers. In this next video, we're actually going to show you a time-lapse video of how this skeleton was cleaned. This is a little sunfish skeleton, a little Texas fish out of a freshwater lake. But this little sunfish was actually cleaned by mealworms. And it took a little over a week, about a week and a half, for them to take this fish all the way down to its clean skeleton. And then we can use that in our bones and teeth lab if we want to. It's actually got some pretty ferocious teeth. If you ever thought about a sunfish's teeth being that ugly, might scare you if you're swimming in the lake. But I'm going to show you this video. And at the end, I'd be happy to hear whatever questions you've got about that program. So let me share screen. Let me come over here to this video. If you're squeamish, you're in the right place for a story, because this is worms decomposing a fish. Okay, this is the fast version, 2 fish on fast mode. So you'll see the whole 9 days in about 12 seconds. There's the clean fish. Then we back off for a second and we do a single fish close up. It's gonna go even faster. But you can see over 9 days, they take that fish all the way down to those clean bones. Now, this is the slow version, and I'm going to jump about a minute at a time. But one of the things I'd like for you to look for, I would like for you to look at how small the mealworms are now, and then 6 minutes into the video, after it's really been 9 days, I want you to see if you can tell how much fatter they've gotten. So here we're jumping about a day and a half. Actually, I think I'm going to jump by seconds. All right. There we go. And I'm going to fast forward the fast forward. And you might notice those fish are slowly shrinking, slowly getting cleaner. Thank you to nature's trash men for taking out the trash, or else we'd have dead things floating all around and laying out in the woods. Hopefully none of those students start singing the worms crawl in, the worms crawl out. Hey, Knuckle. Okay, you can see off to the side, some of those mealworms are starting to get really big. They're just about to the level where they're going to move to their pupa stage. You can see one off to the side who just can't hardly move because he's so big. And we've nearly reached the spot where I'm going to stop sharing, but I want to get right up to clean. Now, it's fine with me if adults aren't interested in talking about rotten fish, but generally, the students have very specific questions about decomposition and how worms contribute to that process. And so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and we'll let that, we'll step back out of that mode. And that's a good stopping point. What questions have you got now that you've kind of seen the bug program?
Alan, Ashley had a question in the chat. She said, have you worked with a functional academic, specifically special education, virtually?
Yes, and I'm actually really interested to do that. A lot of the programs that we have are particularly suited for that group just because there's an easy success rate for participating. Generally, if a student will show up and if they're interested in the topic, then they will be able to find success easily. I know some of the classes we've worked with, several of the students have had accommodations or they've been receiving special ed services. And so they have joined their regular ed class. But we're also happy to sign in directly with, if there's an adaptive class that needs support. I've got a passion about that just because my 4-year-old daughter, she receives special services and she's totally into this sort of science stuff. She likes whatever cool stuff that, well, if I'm teaching it, she probably don't want to listen to it anymore. But she's into science and she likes hearing about it. So I'm totally motivated to help groups like that connect with the program. And I'm particularly interested to hear feedback or ideas from professionals who are working in that space on how we could do a better job of it. Thank you for asking that. What other questions are there? As they come up, just throw them in the chat or interrupt, and that'll be great. I've kind of gone on and on, droned on a little much about the science stuff, but Melissa actually has a great background in cultural history and some of the programs that we have available in that sphere. Melissa, I'm going to take a drink while you share just a little bit about that side of things.
Okay, thank you, Alan. So for cultural history, we have 3 programs. We have 2 that are coming soon, and we have 1 that's available right now, and that's junior historians, and that's K through 2, geared toward those ages. So during these programs, and all of the programs really, we're going to want to engage the students with cool artifacts. And this is one of them. This is a metate, and this is a mono. And as you can see, we can grind corn. It was very important to Native Americans to grind corn because it was a staple in their diet. So even though you don't have a metate and a mono, just like mine, you have a hand. You've got 2 hands. So if you would help me, let's put our metate up and let's get our mono. Okay, good. I see everyone's got one. And let's grind our corn. Grind and grind. And then we're going to have some cornmeal. And I think you're doing such a good job. We might have enough for some corn tortillas. Does that sound good? So we want to interact with artifacts. We also are going to talk about pioneers and how they moved westward into Central Texas in the 1800s. All of the hardships and all of the good times that they had. So this will be a staple in all of our programs. Artifacts, Q&A, interaction, and so we hope to see you.
Thank you for sharing that, Melissa. And also, I would add in too, in our last preview call, we had some questions about the cultural history, particularly could we move things up grade levels or for standards that teachers at a middle school might be interested in. And this is a perfect area for that. And also, it's a perfect example of how interrupting, that's too harsh of a word, but teacher interaction is totally welcome, because if a teacher has a certain standard or a certain topic that they would like in, they can just drop it in right there and say, do y'all remember when? Or next week we're going to talk about, and it will tie right in with this program. So I wanted to put that in there because I know how much fun I'm having watching Melissa prepare those cultural.
And we had another question about resources. So we have our program, but then we have a cool teacher guide and student guide that has a lot of different interesting, fun activities and extensions, and you can take it as far as you want to take it with it. So anyway.
Well, Melissa, thank you for doing that. And if you think of other things too that you'd like to, you know the drill, just speak them out. I'm going to go on and talk about our next science activity, and that is the program about rocks and minerals. Now, earth science can always be the fun one, and it can also be the tricky one if you don't have a pile of rocks or you don't have a stream table or something like that at your disposal. But what we do here at the Mayborn, we are sharing with students how important rocks are, mostly because they touch so many parts of our lives. We wear them. Lots of us have a rock on right now, whether it's a piece of jewelry or it might be a quartz crystal in in your clock. I've got a tie tack on that's got a little stone in it. But we also use rocks for other jobs. Sometimes rocks can be used for decoration in your yard. They might be used to remember something or advertise something. They might show up on your dinner plate, even if you've got your Himalayan pink salt of science, right? You're eating rocks. So we need to know about what we're eating and hanging on the front of our houses. Well, we talk about 3 types of rocks. Those 3 types of rocks, the very first one we talk about, I've stepped off screen to grab it because it's heavy and I don't want to strain my back in front of an audience. But it is this big lump of sandstone. Now, if I hold this up, you can see it's got these really cool layers of sand or sediment. And you can see those colored layers. This rock was not always a solid block. It used to be loose sand that you could run your fingers through, you could make a sandcastle, you could leave a footprint, you could throw it at your little brother. But over time, rain has fallen through it, salt water has seeped through it, and little bitty teeny tiny crystals have formed between the grains of sand and made a big solid block. So what was loose sand now is sandstone, or in science class we say sedimentary rock. And sedimentary rock can come in all different colors. And if I set down that big boulder, I can show off some of those colors with a little set. I'm gonna try not to be like those videos on YouTube where you show stuff on the screen and then it all dumps on the floor in front of you and everybody giggles. But sedimentary rock can come in the pinks and the whites and the grays and all these different colors. But the most important thing for students to realize is that if you take sedimentary rocks and you clink them together and you rub them together or you weather them in some way, they can actually break back apart. And that's really important because that's how we start off talking about the rock cycle. You can take these rocks and you can grind them back into sediment, back into sand. And so it can go forwards to be a stone, or it can go backwards in the process to be sediment again. Now, I love sedimentary rock because that's where you find fossils, and I like to go fossil hunting a lot. We've got lots of cool fossils here in Waco and actually all over Texas. We'll talk some about the fossils in our last program here in a few minutes. But sedimentary rock is not my favorite. There's one that I like even more, and that's the type of rock that actually comes from a volcano. I love rocks that come from a volcano because I think they're super interesting. And here's one of my favorites. For those Minecraft players, or those of you who had to listen to too many Minecraft stories, or you've gotten seasick watching some kids show their Minecraft scenario, you might recognize Obsidian because that's one of the popular blocks in Minecraft. It's really heavy. This is probably close to 10 pounds, well, maybe about 8, but it's solid glass. This rock is a natural glass. And Obsidian flows out of a volcano. It cools off really quickly in water, and then it forms this really dense natural glass. But actually, it's not the only type of rock that we can show off. This is also a volcanic rock, or igneous rock. And this one's really lumpy. It's really bumpy, got lots of little holes all in it. It actually was cooked differently. It's similar stuff, but this was cooled off slowly. This one was cooled off fast by falling into water. This one was cooled off slowly, and it made all these nice little bumps and holes like a loaf of bread or a cookie. But these are actually pretty similar things, and they're useful. This can be in landscaping lots of times. This has been used to make arrowheads and knives for years. Some surgeons still use obsidian knife blades because it makes a really clean cut for surgery. So who knew? So here's the interesting part for me anyways. If you take these two igneous rocks and you start tapping them and breaking off little bits and pieces of sand, you could do that long enough to turn these back to sediment. If that sediment sat for long enough and little crystals formed, you could actually end up with sandstone. So these can become sedimentary rock. This can become that. That can become this. They can trade places in the rock cycle. Now, I love igneous rocks. I think volcanoes are cool, but they're also not my favorite. My favorite type of rock in the whole wide world is the rocks that include the crystals, the precious stones, those mineralized, shiny, awesome things. There's a little collection here. All of those fancy rocks that you think of that you'd like to have in your collection, the rubies and the sapphires and the diamonds and the emeralds, they're all part of this group of rocks. And that's the metamorphic group. Everybody say metamorphic. Good job. I always make the kids do that and they kind of wonder, can anybody hear me? But these crystals have been formed over time by heat and pressure. In the middle of that word metamorphic, there's that part of the word called morph, which means change. They have been changed by heat and pressure. And it's a lot like the Power Rangers. If you or anybody you know ever watched the Power Rangers, I watched it when I was a kid, the mighty morphing Power Rangers will change from regular everyday kids into giant salamander slapping ninjas. And they will put on their ninja costume, and they'll run outside, and they'll karate the cockroach and whatever they're going to do to save the world. But they morph from kid to ninja. Well, metamorphic rock changes from something else. You can get a metamorphic rock by squishing and heating. So you could get sedimentary rock, and you could crush it under the weight of a mountain, and you could heat it to thousands of degrees, and you could get some really cool granite or some really cool marble and get a whole totally different type of rock. So we want students to know that. We want them to remember those 3 rock types, and we also want them to understand that rock cycle, because those metamorphic rocks, they can also be broken into pieces. They can also be melted in the volcano, and all of those parts of the rock cycle can circle back or loop back on each other. And this is usually when I have students who are like eagerly holding their crystals up or eagerly holding up their piece of obsidian that they want to show off and explain. And it's a great way to connect their own personal experience with the science. It's also a good place for me to pause and say, what questions or thoughts do you have about that point of the program? We are on the home stretch now. There's one more program to talk about, and that's our Dinosaurs and Fossils. Now, bugs is always popular, but dinos and fossils takes the cake. Everybody always wants to talk about dinosaurs, and we've got some to talk about. And actually on the Mayborn Connect brochure, the T-Rex is right up front. Kids like dinosaurs because they're cool, but we want kids to know that there are different types of dinosaurs. There's bird-hipped dinosaurs and there's lizard-hipped dinosaurs, and they are different. If you've been to the Mayborn in the last couple of days, you might have seen that we have a T-Rex skeleton coming in. If you haven't seen it though, it'll be ready for action. It's a complete model of Stan the T-Rex. And Stan is standing on 2 legs, just like this, this one, this little red bird. If you look at the shape of these 2 critters, they've got 2 big legs in the back, and they've got 2 little legs up front, and then they've got these ferocious mouths. Now, if you're bigger than the cardinal, it's not so ferocious. But if you're smaller than the cardinal, it's a big red T-Rex. It turns out that dinosaurs, to be a dinosaur, you have to be a reptile, and you have to have your legs under your body, and birds meet both of those. Birds are actually modern-day dinosaurs, and they have the DNA of old ancient dinosaurs still in their bodies. So we have little modern-day dinosaurs flying around, and it's not so crazy because a lot of these old ancient dinosaurs we've come to think about as the dinosaurs, a lot of them had feathers. So there was a lot more crossover. The trouble with talking about dinosaurs, though, in Waco is that there's not tons of dinosaurs around here. There are tons of dinosaurs in Texas, but in Waco, we have a different type of fossil that we like to talk about. We like to add in information about our mammoths. Waco has a good collection of mammoths. There's actually the Waco, I always have to like stumble through the name because it's long, the Waco National Mammoth Monument. I know something gets flipped there. Mammoth National Monument. I'm going to go for that. Emily, nod or shake your head. How close did I get? Oh, very good. But we don't have woolly mammoths. We have Colombian mammoths, and they are different. Colombian mammoths are bigger, and if I may say, they are much cooler. Now, a mammoth looked a lot like an elephant. They had the big head, the long trunk, they had the tusks, 4 big feet, and they also had giant teeth. Giant animals have giant teeth, surprise, surprise. And they had 4 of them. They had one on the top right, one on the top left, one on the bottom right, one on the bottom left. And these teeth, you already know about teeth, they weren't great for catching prey. They were good for crushing stuff up. Actually, those teeth, they look a lot like the beaver's teeth. They're similar in a lot of ways, kind of flat with some ridges. That's because these mammoths ate a lot of plants. And these mammoths also would wear their teeth out. They would wear their teeth out and lose a tooth. A mammoth could have 6 sets of teeth during its life. Now you imagine being a mammoth and all of a sudden something that big has to fall out and grow a new one. It would be pretty impressive, I think, especially if you were the tooth fairy. But this is a cast. This is actually a really light, really sturdy version that people can handle. We also have some of the real material that we like to use in our programs. This is a fragment of a mammoth tooth, and this small piece of a real mammoth tooth is much heavier than this cast. Now, a lot of times, visitors will want to differentiate between the real thing and the cast. Or why do you have the cast? Why do you have a copy? We want the real stuff. Well, I like the real stuff too, but there's some benefits to having casts. One of them is they're tough. The other benefit is you can have lots of them. So you can have one real tooth, but you can use that one real tooth to make 100 casts, and then 100 people can all explore that tooth at their own pace. Now, those people who explore these fossils, those scientists, they actually have a name. They are called paleontologists. And paleo means old stuff. Ologist just means a person who plays around and studies it, learns about it. A paleontologist plays around with old stuff. They learn about old stuff. And paleontologists often have a set of tools that they use to go out and find fossils. Either it could be in the woods, it could be in a stream, it could be in the desert. But those tools generally include several things I'm going to show you here. The very first one would be a little trowel, a little shovel, because sometimes those fossils are buried and you need to scoop some dirt off of them. And actually you could have even a bigger shovel. But if you're going to be shoveling dirt, moving things like that, you actually need to protect your eyes. So I'm going to take my super awesome hat off and I'm going to put my goggles on. Ta-da! Because sometimes those rocks don't give up their treasures easily, and you might have to use a rock hammer. And that rock hammer could be useful for either breaking rocks out of the way or removing something from the matrix. That's fancy for rocks. And so you've got to protect your eyes. But there's two other things that you might use. If you were a paleontologist out on the hunt, you might use one of these. Now, we're not going to be painting the T-Rex. We're not going to be varnishing the Triceratops. This is actually used like a little broom. A lot of times, the bones need to be cleaned off, but if you use a big broom, you might actually sweep away the fossils. So instead, you can use this small broom to carefully clean the fossils that you're trying to collect. So it's an easier way to do it. Or if they're even smaller than that, you might use a little paleontologist toothbrush. Just don't get it mixed up with your real toothbrush, because then you'll get dirt in your teeth. But this could help you as you clean some of the fossils. Now, this tooth that I have in my hand, it's a cast of a T-Rex tooth. It is as big as a banana. And a lot of dinosaurs would have sharp teeth like this. Not all of them did, though. Before I show you a little bit more about how the dinosaurs ate, I need to show you my favorite paleontology tool. My favorite paleontologist tool of all time, very important, very highly technical, don't leave home without it, Paleontology Paper. You have to have paleontology paper if you're going to hunt for fossils. You never want to go home without this, because if you do, you might have the unfortunate problem where a Triceratops says, "Hey, can you bring on a roll? We're out in here." That's a total lie. I made that up. Now, this is actually used by paleontologists to protect fossils. A lot of times when they find fossils out in the field, they might be 100 miles from the lab. They might be 1,000 miles from the museum, wherever they're bringing those things back, and they might have a very rough ride back. Well, the paleontologists can carry this, and they can wrap it around those fossils so that it has a nice, cushy ride all the way back, and they're safe, they're protected. So toilet paper is actually a really useful tool for paleontologists. And I spoke with one paleontologist here at Baylor, and he said they might use hundreds of rolls on a dig. And so I really meant it. You really need to take some with you if you're going to go fossil hunting. Now, as we wrap that up, I told you that we were going to talk about diet. Two things. One of them, some dinosaurs didn't chew their food very well. So to make up for it, they ate rocks. Now, this is a rock called a gastrolith. Gastro is stomach and lith means rock. It's just a stomach rock. For years, when paleontologists would find skeletons, they would find these little polished rocks right in the middle of the skeletons, and they didn't know what they were until somebody realized, wait a second, I've got chickens and they eat rocks. Turns out dinosaurs did too. The way it works, they would eat these rocks and they would swallow the rocks down to their stomach, and then they would eat food but not chew it very well. And then in their stomach, it would smush and crush their food. Well, these rocks would get kind of polished up in the meantime. And now you can find these rocks in the middle of these dinosaur skeletons. So that's one way they digest their food. Chickens still do that. If you go to the fried chicken place and ordered some gizzards, that's the part of the body that those rocks do the digestion. But at the end of that process, at the end of that digestion, you could actually find my favorite fossil. My favorite fossil, it's a neat one. It's got some really good texture. It's got some really good edges. And if I flip it over here, you can even see it's got some pretty colors. Look at that. It's like a crystally, marbly, agate type of rock. I mean, it's really pretty. This is fossilized poop. Now, fossilized poop has a science name. They don't want to say, well, I found some fossilized poop. It's called a coprolite. Copra means poop and ite means rock. It's a poop rock. And some scientists just study the poop rocks because you can tell a lot about an animal from its poop. Big animals have big poops. Little animals have little poops. And sometimes you can see what was in their diet. It might have in there little bits of shell or little bits of bone or little bits of whatever they ate. And so you can learn a lot about the critters just by studying. Now, thank goodness this one's not stinky or gross. It's actually a pretty rock. It's been turned to a rock, or else I wouldn't be holding it where everybody could giggle. So that's my favorite fossil, and that's where I'm going to pause. We'll leave off the Therizinosaurus. We'll talk about Therizinosaurus and Velociraptor some other day. But I want to pause, and I want to see what questions people might have. I'm going to pull my hat off while you're thinking of your questions.
Alan, Ashley asked a good question that is also just some good feedback for us. She asked, could you relate rocks and fossils to social studies by sharing names of counties in the state of Texas?
Ashley, are you? I would love to hear more about that. You might not have a mic that's hooked up, but I would love to hear kind of what would be useful to you. Are you in a spot where you could tag in like that?
Mm-hmm. I was just curious. Part of that has to do with this. I worked with different areas of the state in my last job, so I had to go by counties. And since there's 254 counties, there's Limestone County, and like you have your different counties in Texas. And so I know a lot of them are named after what's around them. So I just was asking if that was a way to correlate two subjects together there.
I love that idea. I think that's a fun idea. I've got to go look up some different counties, but you're right. Limestone County would be, I'm imagining there's some limestone there. And there's also some different precious stones. There's one lanite that, and I may be saying it wrong, but it's only found in that county, Llano. I always want to say but Llano County has only got a lanite rock. So that's a really great idea. I'm always interested in figuring out ways to tie it to social studies or history, and also to the ELA, because there's lots of stories that take place where these different areas of science are happening in our state. And so I'm hopeful that this sort of program can be supportive for subjects outside of science or outside of history classes too. But thank you for bringing that up. I'll have to check out some good connections. What other questions or feedback? If there's something and you're like, if only this would work for my district, or this would work for my situation, I would love to hear that from this group. But before we wrap up, what else is on your mind?
Okay, so while people might be thinking of more questions, I'm actually going to just go ahead and show the website. So please chime in with questions as you have them, but I want to just show quickly what the website looks like for Mayborn Connect. So this is our webpage. If you go to the Mayborn Museum's main site, Mayborn Connect is actually one of the links up here in our menu. And you can book directly from this page. If you scroll down, there's some information about what the program is, some of the questions that you may have about cost or which platforms can be used. And then if you scroll all the way down, you'll see descriptions of all of the programs that we have. Alan talked about 4 today, and then you heard Melissa mention 3, but there's even more than that. So there's some other ones that are new, things about sound and vibrations, a chemistry program, space, and then towards the bottom, these are our cultural history programs right now, but we're always trying to think of more. So we'd love to get that feedback, and we just want to encourage you to check back and see what else we've got. And so if you'll look, for each program, you can click relevant teaks. And right there, you can see the teaks that we've kind of come through and found connect with our programs. Like Alan said, we're always trying to find more connections for these. So, you know, we want that to be a two-way conversation, but you can kind of get a good feel for what types of things we'll be talking about based on those teaks. And then you can click book now. And when you go to book now, it'll actually take you to our booking page. You can check out available dates and find a program date that works for you. A couple of them say coming soon. Those should be up pretty quickly here for booking now, but you might see that here and there as we're getting programs ready to go, and we just want to go ahead and share with you that they are coming.
I have dropped my own email into the chat, and if you don't grab it right this second, it's not too difficult to find. But feel free anytime to reach out with a question or coordinating something or proposing an idea to deepen the program for you or for people that you know. We're totally open to that, and we're eager to be useful, and we're eager to maintain connection with folks who love the Mayborn and cool collections as much as we do.
Thanks, Alan. And Melissa just put her email address there as well. I wanted to say I'm going to send out an email after this call with the email addresses, and I'll share them with you, of Alan and Melissa, and then Lana, who's here on the call. She does all of our group sales. And so if you need to talk to a person about booking, she's your person. Lana, did you want to add anything?
Well, I was just going to say, if you're not able to pay by credit card, which is the way you would book on our website, you can call me, and then we can send the letter or the invoice to the person that can pay. So your school district can pay by check. So it doesn't have to be by credit card.
Yeah. So with that, are there any other questions? Okay. Well, thank y'all for being here today, and we hope we get to connect with you virtually and hopefully sooner rather than later back in person. But we're really excited about Mayborn Connect, and we hope that you'll check it out.
Thank y'all so much for signing in. It was good to see everybody.
Thank you.